Hey folks, welcome to our run of Urban Shadows by Andrew Medeiros and Mark Diaz-Truman. As part of the Gauntlet Reading Club, we've been using Nevo's The Chosen and the Beautiful to inspire the fictional setting. Before we jump into things, I wanted to do a round of introduction for anyone watching. I'm Steven, he, him. I am the one currently facilitating the reading club. I am also GMing this particular run of Urban Shadows. You can find me at Steven Alligator, but you're mostly going to find this, so there won't be much interesting there.
I'm Maria. I use she, her pronouns. I am on Twitter at Yay for Books, where I yell about whatever current piece of media has captured my attention and also have pictures of cats. I am playing Cleo Lim. She is a specter, uses she, her pronouns. Cleo has been doing a lot of heists, most of which have been semi-successful. There are some successes and some misses. But essentially, Cleo has done a lot of things to try and get her family back to the way she wishes it was before, I don't know, wars happened and she died in a fire at a speakeasy. So last time she stole something important from a demon who may or may not, who is possibly the father, we can't trust what demons say, of one of the other characters, and then kind of like had a run-in with her lover who she brought back from the dead to be slightly less dead, and then we left them staring over their daughter who doesn't know that they are not completely dead, even though they are dead. So that's Cleo.
My name's David, and I use he, him pronouns, and I am playing Dante Brixbrickazy, who also uses he, him pronouns. Dante is in the Imp playbook. He is he owns a speakeasy called the Inferno, where he deals in bootleg hooch, demoniac, and more esoteric magical artifacts. Last time we saw him finally manage to pull off the scheme he's been working on, involving complicated dealings with forged paintings. He got embroiled in the feuding between the Wentworth siblings. Yeah, I think that's in broad strokes what he got up to last time. Oh, the other thing that I did bring in was, as a after completing the heist, I introduced the head of security at the Inferno. There's a black trans man called Virgil Booker, who at some point did a deal with the devil at the crossroads, and has subsequently come into Dante's employ.
Hi, I'm Kay. I use she, her pronouns. You can find me on Twitter at puppylover12398, where I currently am doing work with Vorpal Tales in their Solemn Veil game from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. on Monday evenings or mornings, depending on your thought process. I will be playing Emmett, he, him, our Oracle, who's just in a special kind of way, recently knocked out, failing to give warnings to the proper people in the proper ways at the exact times, and just having a time.
This game is hosted through The Gauntlet. The Gauntlet is an online game community mostly focusing on role-playing games of the indie and OSR varieties. Besides publishing a zine called The Codex, it also puts out several podcasts about role-playing games, and of course, it organizes a gaming calendar, which this and many other games are organized through every month. The calendar is open to non-members, so feel free to jump on over there through the link below if you are interested in playing with any of the folks here tonight or any of the other people on the Gauntlet. All Gauntlet games make use of the open door policy, We are all here to have fun and tell a story together. If something happens in real life or you become uncomfortable at the table, feel free to step away as long as you need. No one will hold it against you, and you are free to return whenever you feel ready. If you are able to let the group know if and when you expect to return, that would be helpful for the rest of us in terms of framing scenes, but we understand that sometimes emergencies happen and it's not always possible. Besides the open door, we'll also be making use of several other safety tools that I'm not going to go too deep in detail on because we've gone over these several times at this point. But they are script change the X card and lines and veils. If anyone listening wants to find out anything more about that and they don't know them, you can also just find out more about them. I believe in the Gauntlet website as well. We have descriptions of all those. That wraps up our kind of opening spiel. So one of the things I did want to open on, because we haven't seen Emmett in just a minute, is I'm wondering, Emmett, could you give me could we take your advantage of, we haven't done a faction turn, but
Yeah.
if you could give me a roll for your foretellings.
Oh, yes. So that is 2d6 plus 1. Oh boy, that's a 6. Ouchies. Should I read it off for us?
Yeah, go ahead and give this reading off. I mean, Cleo, it is going about as well as last session went for everyone. We have this room, the room that we are using for this game is cursed. If people want me to make a new one, I feel free to ask.
Before each faction turn or at the start of the game, roll with spirit. On a hit, pick one of the options below. After the faction turn, the MC will tell you what your prophetic terms revealed. I'm going to skip down. On a miss, you instead receive a terrifying premonition about the prophecy that binds you to the benefactor. Take -1 ongoing efforts to your ongoing efforts you make to stop it from coming to pass. Yikes.
Yeah. Cleo, what was that? What was the club that you worked for that burned down?
I don't know if we gave it a name.
I don't believe we did, unless it happened when I wasn't here.
Yeah. We can call it like the Dragon's Horde or something.
Cool. Let me just make a quick note of that for myself. And I'm wondering, we open the session on the image of the Dragon's Horde, not as it is now when it was burnt down, but at its height. And I'm wondering, Cleo, what was its most spectacular feature when it was still before it was burnt down?
It had in the center of its main floor, it had a huge gold spiral staircase from like the top of the ceiling to the floor, and it didn't really connect like platforms or anything. There was just a spiral staircase for people to be dramatic on or dance on or I don't know, be pretty on. But it was glittery and it was shiny.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. And as the scene opens, I think Emmett, I'm wondering, how does your I think that this is how we kind of frame it. Emmett, you are as you step inside, you are greeted by the warmth of celebration, spirits passing lively around. It is a decadent event going on because tonight there is a spectacular show that is going to be put on this evening by none other than Chandler Wentworth.
Yeah, and for a moment, Emmett is overwhelmed in his senses by all of this, and there's this waft in the air of cinnamon and orange rind and all the ingredients you expect in these kind of clubs where there's drinks also free flowing. And he looks at himself and what he's wearing, and he's trying to recall because his head is a little fuzzy. Like, when did they get ready for this? What was he doing last? But he starts to walk through, and of course he's being amiable, maybe because it would be a poor reflection on Chandler if he wasn't. Even if he's a little lost right now, probably just trying to shake it off. Maybe he was just involved in something in his head too much, and that's why he can't remember. And of course, he's looking around for where Mr. Shaw is, because that makes sense. Or Alex? When did he last speak to Alex? Someone must be here to collect him. They don't. He's not used to wandering on his own in places anymore, and he's going forth towards, I think, walking through the crowds of people, not realizing maybe that they're faceless. They're just bodies with nice clothing. But he can't seem to disconnect why that wouldn't fit with reality. As he's heading, I think, closer and closer to a table towards the front of the stage, because of course he has to get the best view. Chandler doesn't do performances. This must be something so special.
Yes, of course. And there is a table that has a name card with reserved for special guest, which of course is you.
And he gets a little, his namesake, he gets a little red in the face, and he makes his way over to the table and gently slides himself in, eyes affixed to the stage, because Chandler does perform, but never on a stage. And to get it seen so bluntly for what it is exciting.
Yes. And as you wait, the curtain begins to draw on the big stage that sets the that is in this establishment. And an announcer says, "And now our special guest of the evening, Chandler Wentworth, performs a connecting of the spheres via blood sacrifice." And as the table draws up, there is a tableau of Chandler Wentworth, and it's once again him stabbing Alex in the chest as the painting of Orpheus and Eurydice is in the background.
Oh man, and it's just Emmett attempting. I feel like he's trying to get up from this seat, but somehow he can't. Like, it's almost as if his legs are like glued or affixed to the fabric there, as he's like desperately, screaming like, no, stop it, I can't, no, both of you stop. And he's just trying so hard, but he's like affixed to watch this tableau play out, glaring at this painting and feeling this rush of anger and hurt in his heart. It's very different than anything he's really felt. He's always been a very lighthearted person. But seeing that painting there in front of this, as he tries to desperately stop it, and he can't, it's just riddling him with just this dark, haunting anger.
Yeah. And as you try to rise, the building turns from a shade, and actually Yeah, let's give you this. Go ahead and give me a roll to and this is in the circle move. Study a place of power with knight here.
Okay, gosh, what is my knight score? Oh boy, -1.
I mean, you get to mark it though.
This is true. I do get to mark it. That is nice. Oh, a 1. How spicy.
Let's see. Is there anything in particular I should... Nope. Okay, it's just make a move. Let's see here.
It's no good, very bad, terrible day.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that... the room begins to burn and crackle around you. And you can see this whole place setting alight. And there's a thunk, a thunk, a thunk that you can hear from beyond the painting. And then you wake up in bed and you have a headache. And that thunk, thunk, thunk is turned into the plink of pebbles hitting against the window of your bedroom in your apartment. What do you do, Emmett?
I think he gets out of bed and he's groggy. And again, wasn't I having dinner with Miss Wentworth? What was going on last? What time is it? And he goes, I think, to the window and goes to open it.
Emmett, are you there? And it's Alex's voice.
And I think there's a moment where he's caught between his heart, like speeding up because, oh my God, Alex, that dream. Oh, right. The warnings, everything. But also there is Alex whole and safe and all right in front of him. So he's caught between like relief and fear, just gnawing at his chest. Alex, what are you doing here? I thought I asked you. Alex. I think there's maybe like a little bit of blood dripping past his nose.
Yeah. I said that I wasn't going to leave you while you were in danger.
What are you doing here? Why are you at my window like some Disney hero?
They roll their eyes. Please, you know I'm not so pure as that.
Well, maybe some of us are.
Yeah, they chuckle at that. Look, I had some friends keeping an eye on your apartment for me, and they had said that
Mr. Shaw,
that creepy driver of yours brought you in.
He's not creepy. His name is Mr. Shaw, and he's
creepy.
He's good people. He's good people. He does his best.
I am fairly certain that he is physically incapable of smiling, but I'll take your word on that, Red.
So wait, they saw him. I guess that's how I got home. I don't really. And he like wipes away like the blood at his face. It's been a bit. What time of day? What day is it? What time is it?
I'm gonna say, yeah, the day that you believe it should be, it's 2 days later.
Oh, and I think he pales a little. I guess I wasn't well. Last I recall, I was having a meeting with, like you mentioned, with Miss Wentworth as she was looking for me. But that was apparently, I guess, 2 days ago, and like his brows sort of furrow because like that's not normal to lose 2 days like that.
Yeah. And I think it's at that moment as you're talking, and this is me kind of pulling in the hard move here,
Oh yeah, go for it.
is there is a knocking at your door. Mr. Mr. And they Mr. Shaw knows you by Prescott, right? Or is it
I don't
Weddington?
think. I don't. I think he just knows Red.
Okay,
I think,
Mr. Red,
yeah.
are you awake?
Emmett like does like the very classic movie thing where he turns his head to where Alex is and like puts his finger to his lips like in the shushing motion, and then sort of walks over to the door and he says, yeah, I just woke up. Did you get me, Mr. Shaw? And he'll like open the door just like a smidge, and it's enough that like Mr. Shaw can kind of see him, like his face again, very pale. There's like probably like smudges of blood where he tried to wipe it away at his face.
And it's the door's open just a crack, you said.
Yeah, just enough so like Emmett's face can be seen.
Yeah, and Mr. Shaw puts his weight on the door a little bit, and you are all right. I heard you talking to someone.
Just talking through my dreams. It was trying to figure out what I saw. You know, I see things. Sometimes it helps to just talk it out a little to yourself. And like he cannot make eye contact. Like he is not a good liar. Like just straight up, like he can't make eye contact as he says that. His eyes probably dart towards the window. Like
You would. And I think Mr. Shaw looks at you and says, you would maybe permit me to look around your room for a moment to make certain that you are all right. Mr. Chandler, not Mr. Chandler, because that's his
Mr.
first
Wentworth.
name, Mr. Wentworth. Mr. Wentworth has many enemies, and we would not want you endangered because of that.
Oh, yeah, it's just me in this room. And it's not like, I mean, I did open the window for a little fresh air when I woke up, so it's not like there's anything going on there. But yeah, you can come in. There's no one here with me. And he just opens the door up, but like slowly giving it a minute. Like so it takes some time.
I feel like you're misleading, distracting, or tricking someone in all this.
He sure is attempting to. I don't know if he's any good at it, but
let's see this roll.
Okay, that's
see if you can manage to get another one on a +1 here somehow.
Ooh. Somehow, I would not put it past this dice roller. Oh, an 8.
Yeah.
That's
so
positive.
On a hit, they're fold, and I'm wondering how does it look like as you manage to So on a hit, they are fold, but you also get to pick 2 things from the list below, and then we'll kind of figure out how that fiction works.
So I think I create an opportunity, which is theoretically for Alex to like either hide in the bushes or something so he won't be seen, or to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I expose a weakness or a flaw.
Cool. And I think that then, what does it look like as you create this opportunity for Alex to hide away?
Yeah, so I think Emmett backs up towards the window because he says he wants to share the room, and he kind of like puts his back towards the open windows and leans against it. And even though he's slight, I think it's just enough to sort of block that sort of frame for a while. And he like does it under the guise of like giving, Mr. Shaw as much access to the room itself as possible to search. And he's just keeping up petty. Like, so what, how did I get here? Did you pick me up? Where was I? What day is it? It looks, and I'll look out the window. Is it dark or is it light? Is it?
I think it's probably early morning. It's before, it's like the sun has just started to rise. So it's not, it's kind of that dawn twilight feel.
Okay, yeah. How long have I been here? Has Chandler been in to see me at all? How is he doing? What is he up to?
Mr. Chandler has been very worried about you. Things are difficult right now. His sister is being meddlesome. And he gives you a very pointed look on that.
Yeah.
And I would not trust anyone coming from her. And he looks very pointedly on that last phrase.
Yeah. I don't get why they can't just get along. It would be so nice. They're siblings. I mean, I don't,
And I think that, yeah, you have an opportunity here because they always are fooled on the hit. So I usually treat the opportunity as an additional thing you get out of it.
Okay.
There is a land deal that is currently in the works. Chandler has decided that he is not going to wait for the proper usual legal matters to clear up. He will be claiming it by in matter of fact rather than in matter of law. So we want to make certain that you are kept safe until this dragon's horde matter is closed.
And I think Emmett, like Red, he has that moment where he hears this and it sort of clicks together, like Dragon's Horde, the place in his vision, what he saw, and he sort of like quickly, like his head turns immediately to look out the window. And then he looks at Mr. Shaw. He's like, I need to speak with, and like he gets that kind of look in his eye, and he's like, I need to speak with Mr. Wentworth right now. And he opens up his hand, he puts his like fist on it, and like puts together like right now.
Mr. Wentworth had instructed me not to put you in danger. Why do you need to speak with him, Mr. Red?
Because he's in danger. It just, what I saw, and he like touches his face again, where like maybe the residual blood is. What I just saw that 2 days of that, he is in mighty danger. If I don't get to him, if we don't figure this out, please, Mr. Shaw, I don't ask for much. I need to see him.
Mr. Shaw lets out a put upon sigh. And I think because you did get that opportunity in exposing a weakness or flaw, I won't ask for another roll to persuade an NPC here. But I think that we get to the image of Mr. Shaw having you step into the car that Chandler has for you. Mm. And as you drive away, we see stepping out from behind the bushes, Alex looking at you drive away. And we'll see what happens next there.
Screams.
I wanted to, before we go to our last break, get a couple scenes from Cleo and Dante as well. I wanted to give a little time for Emmett there, so we had to get them caught up and wrap back into the story. But I'm wondering, where do we find Cleo this early morning?
I think Cleo is backstage at the Inferno. I kind of don't think I ever gave Cleo like a home or an apartment or anything because she's a ghost and doesn't really need one. But I think like she spends her time probably like at least some of it she spends in like the changing rooms and the backstage area of the Inferno. And I think we see Cleo like it's pretty empty right now because it's the daytime and there's probably not anything happening too much in the daytime, at least in terms of performances. But there's probably a table with a mirror in front of it, like one of those changing tables. And then I think the box is like sitting it on the counter. And I think we just see Cleo inspecting it, poking at it, running an incorporeal hand through it. Yeah.
Cool. And so, David, I did want to ask this because, well, Dante, I did want to ask this because you had chosen a moving hidden location to which only you control access.
Yep.
And so I don't want to just have Asmodeus step into the scene then, because that would, but I'm curious, if Asmodeus were to enter the scene here, would you be interested in Dante, like, he can appear in the scene, but Dante would be aware that he's here and could step in to intervene after a moment or two, or something like that?
Yeah, no, that sounds fair.
Cool. Okay. Because I didn't want to like negate the actual assets you had chosen for your.
No, that's fine. I think if we sort of assume this is kind of still just in maybe the very dying days of opening hours, he could probably I think maybe Dante is aware, but there's probably nothing immediately preventing him from coming up at that point unless I choose to make a point of it, because we are essentially open for business.
Cool. Okay. And as Asmodeus, well, I think actually it's one of the girls that works the stage and says, Miss Lim, I think there's someone here for you. He's a rather, well, he's charming, but in kind of one of those going to try to talk you into making a bad decision sort of way, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I can sort of guess who you mean. Why don't you let Dante know that this person's also here, and let the person in. Just keep the rest of the girls away. I don't want you to get involved in any of this.
And she gives a nod and says, "This isn't a suitor of yours, is it, Miss Cleo?"
No, nothing like that. Do you honestly think I would be interested in any of these people? You know me better than that. And Cleo just like shoos the girl away.
Yeah, and into the backstage steps Asmodeus, and I do want to throw this out to to Dante here. What's the stylish suit that Asmodeus has come on in today?
Yeah, I think that this is well, we're probably a bit too early for zoot suits, but it is like a kind of lavender suit, double-breasted, with a matching trilby, and I think sort of like two-tone shoes. Though again, I think they're lavender and probably lavender and white, but then with like a black shirt under the suit. And I don't think he is wearing a tie. I think he has sort of like the top two buttons of the shirt undone, and a little silver medallion hanging around his neck.
He steps in this suit and says, "Cleo, how wonderful that we were able to I'm able to see you now. My boy seems to have managed he seems to have managed rather well on his own, hasn't he?"
Cleo is going to step between Asmodeus and the box and cross her arms and like lean against the counter, and kind of like appraisingly look at Asmodeus up and down, taking in this whole ensemble, and say, "Are you angling for some sort of on-stage family surprise? You look like you could, I don't know, be a performer."
Oh, well, I would never want to take away from any of your performers, but old Orphe always did say I had a wonderful set of pipes on me, and if you do need a singer for tonight.
Oh, I'm sure that, well, maybe it's time you spent some time in the spotlight instead of acting in the shadows all the time, pulling strings on everyone. Are you
I might say the same about you, Miss Lim. Why in the world is someone with your and he gives you a look over, stage presence, deciding to stick around back here when you could be putting any of these girls you have performing to you to shame.
People tend to like a little bit more warmth than their performers, as it were. And something about seeing through a person kind of puts them off.
Some people don't have most people have poor taste, and he gives you a wink.
Are you, I'm assuming you're here for your box.
That I am. And I assume you want. And he reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out a vial.
Well, I would like that, but also I'm dying, or, well, that's not the correct word to use here. I'm full of curiosity. What exactly is in this box that you're willing to give me some of that? Unless that thing means nothing at all, and the box is just a box.
Well, the box is just a box, but it's a matter of what's inside it. And if you want to open it up, dear, go right ahead, Miss Glim. I'll even do it for you. And he steps over, pops open the lid. And my Chrome has just started okay, cool. Sorry, my Chrome was glitching out, so I want to make certain that people could still hear me.
Yep.
But yeah, he steps over and pops open a box, and it is a beating heart inside. He takes it up, blood running down his hand, and says, yes, is just like I remember it. We've been apart for quite a long time, it and I.
Yeah, Cleo jumped back when she saw it was a red beating heart. She's still not used to that. But then I think she will look closely at it. And why does Chandler Wentworth have your heart?
How do you think I got found away in that little place in the first to begin with?
You're telling me Chandler Wentworth tricked you? That seems like the most humble admission I've ever heard come out of your mouth.
Oh, yes, well, imprisonment will do that for a man. And as he says that, he just bites down into the heart and tears out a big bite with his mouth, kind of blood smearing down his face. And he just starts eating it.
I think, is he still holding the bottle with the
Oh, yes, of course. And he says through a mouthful, and he tosses it at you.
I think I will pick that up and then look at it and then sort of extend it back to him. I have a counter offer.
Yes, and that is, girl.
Instead of this water from the river Forgetfulness, what if I helped you get revenge on Chandler Wentworth?
I think he gives a grin at that. Did you have something in mind?
Well, no, not really. The opportunity presented itself, but
Because I happen to know that Mr. Wentworth has a certain interest in an old place of yours. A place that is just rife with, well, not just your death, but quite a few. And Mr. Wentworth has made most of them.
well, I think I know what place you're talking about, and I think it would just, well, it would be a little poetic if that was where justice got served for a man who's done so much.
I think I would like to ask you to persuade an NPC here.
Yeah. Or can I cash in a debt?
Yeah, if you have any. Yeah, you do have a debt on him.
I have a debt on Asmodeus. I will spend I'm still trying to figure out what. Okay, yeah. I'm not sure which one's better to use.
Well, in this case, actually, for NPCs,
Mhm.
because unlike PCs, they can't like roll to try to get out of
Mhm.
it. You don't do them to like get you to do. You don't ask NPCs to do you favors. You still roll to persuade, but you can
Okay.
spend. You can
Cash in a debt to add 3 to my
yes.
total. Okay, I'll do that then.
Cool.
Let's see, where's my debt? So persuading is with heart, which I have 0 of. And that's a 6.
Oh, I was wondering if this would somehow happen.
This is enough. What? No. Okay. Yeah, that happened. I tried.
I like your idea, Cleo, but I'll need a little guarantee that this isn't some trap for me. And he holds out his heart to you, half eaten. Oh, I don't usually like to share my meals, but if you take a little bite, dear, and then we can proceed.
Oh boy. Do I know something of is there something I should know about
I'm
eating a
going to ask that
demon's
this is
heart?
definitely going to mean that he is going to be linked to you. And the way that we'll represent this is that you will add one of the Tainted's Let It Out abilities to the list of your abilities that you
Okay.
can do when you let it out.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'm kind of fiddling with the bottle of the thing that I'm trying to trade back for power to take on Chandler. And then I think like it will really hesitatingly suddenly like become corporeal and take like a really tiny bite with eyes squeezed shut of this horrifying thing.
What does... It doesn't taste how you'd expect it to, Cleo. What does a demon's heart taste like?
I think I saw all of the blood and thought it would taste metallic and like blood, but instead it tastes like it tastes like rose flavoring from like rose water extract or whatever, but really burnt.
Cool.
Like someone set a bunch of roses on fire.
And I think, Dante, what did you do when you found out, when you got the word from this, from one of the performers that Asmodeus was here?
Yeah, I think Dante is probably going to be kind of heading down to see him, and I guess possibly this is about the point when he does get there. He won't be kind of like running, but he will be kind of making his way there.
Yes, and I think that you come in just as Cleo has swallowed this bit of heart. And Asmodeus looks to you and says, "Oh, I apologize, boy, for not announcing my entrance. Ah, don't worry about the blood, it's all mine."
You'll be surprised to learn that doesn't reassure me a whole lot, Mr. Benedetti.
Cleo is just like wiping the like blood off her lips, kind of looking a little bit guilty.
Yeah, and I think Dante will raise an eyebrow. Um,
Is that a way to talk to me, Dante, my boy? We've known each other for such a long time, haven't we?
some would say too long, Mr. Benedetti.
Yes, I would certainly say too long. I was just going over some of my and Miss Lim's here recent business, and it sounds like you're trying to figure him out. From it definitely sounds like you are, like cold reading him to try to get some info off him.
Yeah, that sounds good. Oops, no, I just moved the thing. Here we go. Fix something out. Yeah, it's mine. Cool. That's an 8. So 79. So I get to ask 2, and they can ask one of me as well. I can also ask an additional question because he is in my circle.
Yes.
So yeah, I think the first and most obvious one is going to be what is Asmodeus hoping to get from Cleo?
I think that he looks over at Cleo and says, "Miss Lim and I simply have, well, the two of us have a shared acquaintance that requires a lesson in humility. And I think that, Miss Lim here has some unplumbed depths in humiliating men."
She certainly has her talents, that's for sure. And I think so. This mutual acquaintance of yours, what's so got your eye on that? And yeah, I'll ask what's your character's beef with Wentworth, with Mr. Wentworth here.
Why, he kept me away from this world so long, Dante, my boy. And he like flicks your lapel and runs the back of his bloody finger along your cheek. Kept me away from this world, from my associates like you and Miss Lim. I want to make certain that he suffers just as much as I did. And how could I put your character in my debt?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um,
Oh, I have a thought. If you're stuck,
Oh yeah, go for it.
what if it's that he will cut ties with Luca, because you know that he was trying to.
Yeah, that's a good. That had slipped my mind, but yes, that absolutely would be a way that he could, essentially, yeah, he could trade that what he holds over Luca for hold over me would make sense.
Yeah, he looks at you, Dante, and says, "I'd like for us to be in business again. If we were working together, why, I might just be willing to pay a bit less attention to those other new mortal acquaintances like Mr. Volpe that I've been cultivating."
Okay, so I'm willing to help you out on this particular piece of work, because honestly, putting you and Wentworth in a sack together and seeing what happens would brighten my day, I think. But sure, I'll help out. But I'm surprised someone as powerful as yourself needs a couple of little folk like us to get what you want. And I think with my last question, I'm going to ask, what does your character worry is going to happen?
I think that it's revealed on a little bit coming from a different angle here. But he reaches out, but as his hand falls back to your lapel, he pauses when you ask that. I do not need the little people like you, Dante. You should know that. And his hand raises, and he wraps it tight around your neck. I want people like you. I think that there is a worry here that you understand is underneath this, that he has been in prison for a while, and his worry is that he doesn't have the power and connections that he needs to become sort of king of New York. And that's exactly why he's going after Chandler.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And I think Dante will say, well, I guess I should consider myself honored then, Mr. Benedetti.
You should. I don't select. I have an eye for gems among the rough, and you and Cleo are certainly gems.
You're too kind.
I'm glad that we're doing business again, Dante. And he puts either hand on the shoulder on either shoulder and gives you the kind of mafioso kiss on the forehead, which of course is like a bloody lip print, leaves bloody lip prints on your forehead. And I think maybe that's where we close the scene. And Emmett, the car that you're in pulls up, and I'm wondering, Cleo, if you could give us a description of the dragon's horde as it is now.
As it is now, I am imagining that there are like two remnants of brick walls like still standing, but they're like sort of fallen over, and I think they've cleared away most of the rubble, but there are just like large chunks that haven't been cleared away because maybe they were too big. And no one was planning on doing anything with this lot anyway, so no one bothered. There is, I think you can see where the center staircase was. Like there is still a foundation there. There is some like twisted metal that is now black and not in the shape of a staircase. Yeah.
I like the idea that it's black and twisted, but there almost seems to be like a kind of abstract beauty to it.
Mhm.
Like it's only become more splendid in its destruction.
Yeah.
And as you enter, as Mr. Shaw shows you in, Emmett, this place has been arrayed with some of the mystical tools of Chandler, who is frantically preparing things around the space. And he looks up and says, "Mr. Shaw, I do not know why you were taking so long, but..." And then he sees you, Emmett. And he says, "Emmett," he says, what are you doing here?"
And I think Emmett is in like a panic. Like it was clear on the card as they were coming in is that the location became more and more aware. Like they weren't just going to one of Chandler's apartments or one of the estates. He's been getting more and more frantic. And I think he can't help himself as they get there. And he immediately just runs up to Chandler and like wraps his arm around him and is just shaking his head against his chest. And he's like, we need to go. We need to leave. This isn't, I've seen things. It's been, we need to go. This isn't, you shouldn't be here. It's not safe.
You are the one who shouldn't be here, Emmett. I am doing this to make certain that you are kept safe.
And I think he meets his eyes and he says, "You can't hurt Alex. You'll only hurt me if you hurt him." That sort of almost like precognition knowledge there.
And I think he looks at you and says, "Why are you so concerned about Alex, Emmett?"
Because I'd lose a part of me if I lost him. I couldn't. He's a part of me just in the same way that you are. You may occupy a larger space or more, and he's like fumbling over his words as he like will take Chandler's hand and sort of place it over where his heart is frantically beating.
I understand that you are upset, Emmett. Which is why I do not want you here. I can assure you that anything I do will be much easier for you if you simply walk away.
And I think tears start streaming down his face, and like the hand that was holding his hand against him starts like forms into like a small fist and just starts beating against Chandler's chest. And it's just like, you never listen. It's not just you, it's us. And you never listen. You never think. And the reason I'm with you is show you when you never listen. You never think. I was gone for 2 days. You bought that painting, didn't you? You didn't listen to me. You don't. Why am I here if you don't listen or take advantage of what I'm showing you? What's the point? You never listen.
And he is, I think, doing that thing of like grabbing at your wrist as you start doing this. You're here because I love you, Emmett, and you're here because you're beautiful.
And I think, do I be spicy? Do I be really spicy? I kind of want to be really spicy. And I think he's going to lean in and sob against, I'm going to be spicy. He's going to lean in and sob against Chandler's chest for a moment before he pulls back, and there's that red mist to his eyes again, and his voice sort of registers a little lower as I'm going to use a corruption move and inform him. It's like the voice is very similar. It's a little darker. And he's like, if Alex O'Fair dies, then so does Chandler Wentworth. And I'm going to mark a corruption twice. The first to make this curse actually happen, to nearby someone to pronounce a potent or impressive curse upon them. And then a second to obscure my role in the curse, to obscure my role in this curse. So he doesn't know that I'm causing it. Maybe he thinks that I've seen it, or I'm seeing it right now, but yeah. Spicy.
Oh. And I guess, because fictionally, let me know if you're okay with us, with it playing out this way, Emmett. Okay. When you say that, he sighs and kisses the top of your head. I had hoped that would not be the case. I'm very sorry for this, Emmett. And I think I'm going to ask you to mark 2 harm as you feel the knife pierce you. But I do need a blood sacrifice. I didn't want to use you, but I hope you understand.
Oh, shit. And I think, this is great. And I think he coughs up blood and looks so confused. Like, but I I love you. How can
I
you?
do too. But love is passing. Power is forever.
Oh yeah, and he's starts. Yeah, I think he like falls against. Oh, this changes the whole scheme of what was going to happen and things Emma was going to do. Yeah, he's really injured. He's in the moderate zone. Yeah, and he just falls, I think, against Chandler, like shaking and covered, like coughing up like blood. His blood is like seeping out of him as he just got stabbed.
Yes.
Years.
And Maria, Cleo, it's at this point I'd like to ask you that you feel a tension. Something dark and terrible is happening at one of your anchors.
Right.
And I'd like to ask you to mark a trauma, but you take +1 forward to resolving that threat.
Okay.
And you feel that something dark is happening at the dragon's horde.
Okay. Yeah, I think when I feel that and knowing all of the stuff that's been surrounding that particular lot, I wonder if I could sort of, if Cleo would be able to sort of guess who might be causing this and use invocation to cash in a debt with them to appear in their presence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely think that could be the case.
Yeah.
I'd even say if you would like to bring, because Dante is here, if you'd like to bring Dante with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we're still in like that backstage room, I think like probably just watch Asmodeus depart. Cleo has like wiped off the blood and looks a little bit guilty as she realizes possibly not the best idea to take a bite out of your employer's demon patron's heart. But
Ex-demon patron's heart.
Ex-demon patron's heart. But I think like before she can say anything, she feels the tension of something wrong, and she just looks up and and looks straight at Dante and says, I think things are happening. Happening where everything has been pointing to. And then yeah, I mean, she's gonna. Should I take Dante with me? I can take Dante with me. I will.
I mean, I'd say if Dante's okay.
Yeah, if Dante wants to go.
Okay, so you think this is a thing with Wentworth?
One of them, possibly.
Oh yeah, I do. I saw that you took a new move, Dante. So before you run into this, does Dante want to come up with work out a plan?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I think so. I think Dante's gonna go. I've no idea what we're gonna get into, but I'll try and keep Wentworth occupied. Do what needs to be done. If you can get up behind him and take him out or disrupt whatever shenanigans he's up to, I'll try and keep his focus on me. Does that sound like a plan?
Cleo, I think she was like in a hurry and then was like, we have to come up with a plan, and then is now like, yes, sure. Yes. I wasn't quite expecting to be the one who would be doing any violence, but if you think you're the better one for distractions, then yes.
We'll see how it looks when we get in there, but hopefully it won't come to violence. I prefer to solve problems with words when I can, and he's going to give a grin.
Cool. And so give me a roll with mind here, Dante.
Sure.
We don't need to work out all the specifics of the plan. We'll treat this a lot like Blades in the Dark and say that, well, actually, this is all part of your plan whenever you want to spend one of those hold.
Sure thing. Yeah, and that's an 8.
Cool.
So I think that gives me 2 hold to spend.
Cool. So yeah, and now let's switch over then to Cleo.
Yes.
Cleo, what does it look like when you spend this debt to take yourself and Dante into
Chandler's presence?
Yeah.
I think it's a lot like how Cleo fades out and then pops back in. I think she will take Dante's wrist, and it's almost like they're walking out of the door, but instead of like walking out of the door, they kind of like fade out, and maybe there's special effects that happens, and then they come in to sight at like right next to the staircase, or they just like pop up again in the lot that the demon's horde was on.
Yeah. And how does this feel to Dante? Is this comparable to anything for you, or is this something new?
I think that this is different to the sort of I get the feeling that possibly Dante has traveled by like weird portals before, but it's always very much more being demonic related. So I think this I think actually in a sort of like call back to the Ghost Realm last time, I think there's just like a moment where Dante, as they sort of blink out of the club, Dante finds himself in like a frozen mountain pass. It's clearly like fortified, set up for sort of defenses. There's sort of men in uniform, all hunkered around a very small fire, and all the sort of color drains from Dante, and then it sort of flashes back to where they appear again.
Cool. And as this opens up, you come upon the scene of Emmett bleeding, a knife from a knife wound, and Chandler Wentworth standing over him. He looks up at the two of you and says, "You'll excuse me, Mr. Bracchesi, but I believe our business is already done." I'm wondering, does Red... This is in reference to the fact that you did make that sale last session.
Yeah.
I think he hears this. Red gets the confirmation, and he looks, and I think like he makes eye contact with Dante, and he's like, "Told you it'd be bad for us if you made the deal." And like blood just like falls from his mouth, like his eyes are just full of tears and all red. And
I thought so too, Mr. Wentworth, but I don't take kindly to people. He's going to kind of point down to Red. I don't take kindly to people stabbing kids up in my city. So it looks like we may have to reconsider our contractual arrangements.
We can, and we shall once the binding is complete. And he gestures at the painting. I will have more power than you can comprehend. And as he jams the knife into the painting, there is a flickering of energies in the air, Dante. But I think both you and Chandler at that moment recognize that it isn't demonic energy flowing from this painting. It's an energy that permeates a much similar to what Cleo encountered in the gallery. Because, of course, the thing inside this painting is no longer a demon. It is... I think I'll go with it. I think you get a roar and a gout of flame bursts from the painting. And Cleo, you get the sense of a great beast, a dragon, shifting and moving among the paints. This is the trap left behind by Christine Wentworth for her brother.
I think Cleo actually starts chuckling a little bit despite the situation, because when that realization dawns on her, they had gone through all of that to try and get revenge on Chandler, and here Christine was already in place. Does it look like the fire? What is the fire doing?
I think Chandler backs away and is saying, no, this is not correct. Where is Asmodeus? And he looks at you, Dante.
And I think you could just hear like this like choked laughter from this like Emmett where he's bleeding out. It's like a sobbing, like not great laugh.
Let's take this from the beginning, Mr. Wentworth. You hand over Red, and then maybe I'll answer your questions.
Oh. Yeah, I think that... I would like to get a move here from you. Could you give me a persuade an NPC here?
Sure thing. So just checking what my heart is one. Cool. That is an 8.
And let me double check this.
I don't think I have a No, that's why I don't have a debt on him. I was thinking about that, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just forgetting if there's still a help someone out in this game, but I'm not sure there is.
I don't think so. No, I could add a +1 from my plan thing, but that obviously won't. That'll only get up to +9 anyway. So
Cool. So yeah, let's go to persuade an NPC. On a hit, they see your point and do on your ask, but on a 7-9, they counter your offer or demand payment. A debt favor resources before agreeing to follow through. And I think it's then that Yeah, I think it's then that he looks at you, Dante, and says, Fine. But I will not release anything until you aid me in sealing away whatever trick you have played upon me. And there is a roar as almost the paints tear away from the painting. And claws a face. It is not like an actual dragon pulls into it, but it's like a smear of paints crawls out from the painting upon the world. And you can see it forms the silhouette of a great winged beast. And I'm wondering, Cleo, what do you do?
I think that kind of as Dante and Chandler have been talking, Cleo has been, I guess, following almost the plan that they talked about and has been, I don't know if she can really fade entirely from sight because I think Chandler can see anyway. Chandler is pretty perceptive, but has been inching around the perimeter to again get between Chandler and Emmett. And I think let me think. As the paint smear dragon is coming out of the painting, I think Cleo will take this opportunity to, can I try to lash out at an NPC in furious anger?
Let's see here.
It is next to
Sure. That makes sense. We can give this a go. Give me a roll with this and we'll see how it happens. And you get +1 to this because this is dealing with the threat to your anchor.
All right. Roll with blood. Am I good at blood? I am sort of good at blood. That's +1. +2. How about I roll something that's not a 6?
However, there is the plan. You can get a +1
to
this and bring it up to a 7.
I will spend a hold to give a +1 to that roll.
Thank you. Oh gosh. Yeah.
So you clear your trauma track, so you get rid of all your trauma.
Okay.
What does it look like as you are lashing out in furious anger? Because this is just going full, like, murder ghost here, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's Cleo seeing like this opportunity that Dante and the dragon have created and just being so tired of like the Wentworth bullshit. And trying to think what she has that can actually cause harm. But I think like essentially she just makes herself as incorporeal as she can be, and will launch herself bodily at Chandler and then try to corporealize in his space, and hope that causes harm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, let's see. So on a 7 to 9, your violence is undirected and wild. It leaves you vulnerable, gets out of hand, or causes some collateral damage. MC's choice. I think that... As you corporealize, I think that, well, I'll throw out an option to you here. Do you want to be vulnerable, or do you want to let your full murder ghost out and kind of fling things around and let this get out of hand and cause some collateral damage?
I think let's cause some collateral damage and let things get out of hand.
Cool. I think as you send Chandler flying, and again, I have a few fictional ideas here, but I want to get people's okay on this.
Can I try something actually really quickly?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Sure.
So I think Emmett sees him about to go flying, and despite all of this, he does love Chandler. And I think he almost can't help himself. And is going to attempt to let out his power.
Okay. So which power are you trying to activate here?
So I'm failing to twist the strands of fate to help or hinder an NPC in your presence. But I'm failing.
Okay. So cool. So this is, I will add this in then to what is happening to Cleo here. Mm-hmm. So Cleo, you lash out and you send. Oh, you know, there's that twisted staircase that is there. And I think that it is at just that moment, Emmett, as Cleo shoves Chandler and you try to twist the strands of fate, that you hear Alex's voice calling for you. And Emmett flings onto the staircase. And Chandler is impaled through the heart. And it says, just as that happens. I mean, on the miss is the thing. But we are not. I'm going to give you a hard question. I'm going to give you a hard choice here. But if you don't want Alex's life threatened to begin with, we can change this up if you're all right with this.
Nah, fuck it up, son. I mean, Emmett's gonna be horrible, but fuck me up. That's this game. These bad rolls.
Yeah. You hear Emmett is standing over you and saying, "What do I do? What do I do?" And then you see not your blood. Blood just begins to seep from his chest. And he begins to gasp and fall over you. And you hear a voice that you have not heard before. It looks like your friend isn't in good straits, is he? But you know, and he holds up the bottle of the waters from the underworld that Cleo turned down. I think I can keep him from passing on, and it is Asmodeus. I just think the two of us should work together, don't you, Mr. Prescott?
And I think Emmett's like half delirious from blood loss, and he just saw Chandler die, and now Alex is dying before him, and it's all his fault. He just feels inherently it's all his fault, and his face is covered in trees. Whatever you want, just I can't lose them both. I can't. And like he like probably coughs up blood, like.
And he places a bit of the water on Alex's lips. And Alex begins to breathe again, weakly. And Emmett, if you could change your patron from Chandler Wentworth to Asmodeus.
Oh boy. You can do that.
And Dante, there is still this creature, and as it looks between the group of you, it looks to you, Dante, and growls. Because of course, Chandler is dead, but there is still this creature here that was trying to deal with him. What do you do? And I will actually say, on that partial, because we didn't kind of get to play off that, I will throw this out here, Dante, that you still have a few one hold from your move. Let me see here. If you want to have something on hand that prepared you just for this eventuality.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the you know, again in Blazing the Dark flashback style, it's revealed that Dante actually knew the trap that was already set in the painting.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just that, you know, he delivered it to Christina, but he was actually present for the summoning. And I think he has like he pulls out an amulet that I suppose amulet's probably not quite the right word. It's more like a little miniature on a chain, and painted on it is a depiction of this dragon.
Yeah. The dragon backs up from you, and it senses your power. And because Cleo is in this scene, and we haven't really taken advantage of it much, if you would like to mark a corruption, you observed what Asmodeus was able to do with his heart, and you think you might just be able to do something of the same. If you placed your heart into this dragon, you would be able to add a bound draconic spirit to your assets.
Yeah, that sounds maybe not a good idea, but like an idea that I will definitely go for. And I think perhaps with Dante being sort of only partially demonic himself, I think it's maybe a little more symbolic than with Asmodeus. And I think, I think he kind of pulls open his shirt and kind of makes an incision down his chest over his heart, and I think sort of just with like a sort of switchblade, he flicks a little blood onto the amulet, and then sort of approaches and holds the tip of the blade out for the dragon to lick.
Yeah. And it licks up your hand, and it feels almost uncomfortably warm. And you can feel, because as I said, this is a kind of thing of paint. It kind of moves up along your arm and then finally settles in a sprawling tattoo along your chest of a dragon. And you can feel that warmth there. And it's at that point that Asmodeus looks up and says, "Well, I think that went very well, don't you?"
On the balance of things, it's about middle of the table for my plans.
Yes, I think that Emmett was not healed by this. So I think, Emmett, what do you have anything you say or do here?
I just think there's like a resounding cough sob again, as he's like that sort of like maybe brings some of the attention back to oh yeah, the kid is dying on the floor right now.
Yes,
Pretty
he does look at you, Dante and Cleo, and says, "Do you have somewhere you can take the boy? I don't really like blood." And he chuckles.
I know a guy.
Wonderful. And he kneels down beside you, Emmett, and says, "I think the two of us will be doing some very good work together in the future."
And it's terrible, but I think Emmett leans and it looks like he's about to say something and he just coughs up blood right in fucking Asmodeus' face.
And he gives a cough and takes out a handkerchief and runs it along his face.
It is oracle blood, though. That's spicy. Special blood.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, he tucks it back into his pocket.
Oh, God. That's great,
Lovely.
too. Yeah. And Emmett's eyes, I think, are just a glassy. Like, he's barely even registering this at this point because he's been bleeding out for quite a bit, probably.
Yes. And I think that it's at that moment that we end this scene. So
Nice.
yeah, I think that we'll kind of close here on doing some kind of like some less more free play narration, like free play and narration, anything that people want. And I'm gonna go around counterclockwise here again. And just to check in, if you have like ideas but you want to like introduce them after you see what other people do. But I'm just wondering, Cleo, is there any like ideas you have about where we see Cleo in the coming weeks or months after the events of this run?
Yeah, I had something that could happen. Like, I feel fairly soon after the events in the lot. Like, I think what I want, or Cleo wants to do, is to even though this is an anchor is one of her anchors, I think she wants, if there's a way, she might need to like get help to do this, but she wants to cut off all of like the nexus of power that this place is, that has been attracting all of like the Wentworths and Asmodeus and everything to where the dragon's hoard was. Like, she wants to make it a normal place where there isn't any more fire death or blood sacrifice death or impaled on staircase death.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. That actually made me think now, because we're not playing out a full game. So if you want to pick 2 options from your passing on move for blessings, because we did resolve 2 of your anchors here, basically. If you want to pick 2 from that list, and we can just work it into the fiction, that you already picked, like Cleanser, Restore, Cherished Place.
I
Do you want to pick a second one, Cleo?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we reveal to an NPC the truth of your death and passing. And I think like maybe that would be something where Elian and Cleo appear to Franny when Franny is not asleep. And also gently and not in a scary way. Maybe it's scary at first, but
yeah. And I think when Franny sees you, she says, "Oh, miss, you're back." And she kind of cocks her head. Why do you only ever come when I'm sleeping, miss?"
because for the longest time, I didn't want you to know what you should never have lost. But I think you should know who you are before you leave this orphanage and go wherever it is you will go. You're my daughter.
And I think in that like 5-year-old way, she just assumes that your lap is available for sitting on, because she just immediately climbs up onto it.
Cleo's like, I'm corporeal. And I think like maybe Cleo will just like tell the story about like how she'll basically tell her or Fanny like her love story with Elian, glossing over the parts where they died and just say like, then we went away. Or I guess she will say that they died. But in a way that like a 5-year-old can understand. And kind of, I think, because Franny is now like the child of immigrants in an orphanage, just like tell her about the family that she came from and their, like tell her where her grandparents are and things like that.
Cool. And yeah, I think we leave on that kind of fading, like kind of that, that panning away and fading back into like as your voice passes into silence as we kind of go further away. And where do we find Dante in the coming weeks and months?
I think actually the idea for the scene I have actually first is I think we get first like a shot of Red, well actually probably presumably Red and Alex both kind of in hospital beds with a couple of sort of like nursing nuns attending to them, and we kind of pan out through the door where Dante is kind of looking through the little glass porthole on the door at them, and then the as he's sort of standing there, sort of looking, the sort of a hand comes on his shoulder, and it's the Archbishop is there, and they kind of exchange a few words, and he Dante slips him a little. Well, it's probably actually like a kind of wrapped up in a sort of cardboard box wrapped up in nice paper with a ribbon, which obviously contains a bottle of whiskey that he hands over to him.
And he looks down at the bottle and says, "Is it? Well, Mr. Benedetti, I must say today has been a rather, or not Benedetti, Mr. Brichesi. I must say, Mr. Brichesi, today has been a rather 2 bottles sort of day, don't you think?" And this is actually at the hospital, or are you at his office?
This is at the hospital. Yeah.
Okay. And he grabs from whatever nurse's station like 2 mugs for coffee and pours each of you a glass. And it appears, well, that they found the body of Mr. Wentworth with the at that abandoned club. I don't want to know all the details, but I assume any gestures in at the 2 boys, they're involved in this somehow.
They were victims as well. They weren't involved in the unfortunate accident that befell Mr. Wentworth. He messed with powers beyond this world, and Father, he suffered the consequences for that, as you might expect.
Yes, I can't say that the city will be a worse place for Chandler's passing. I'll do what I can to make certain that no harm comes to either of them. But I worry that whatever has happened here speaks to something darker on the horizon. And I know, Mr. Brichesi, that you are someone who walks the gray line between vice and virtue. I hope that you will try to protect yourself as well.
Staying one step ahead of troubles my life goal, Father. But I appreciate you keeping an eye on the kids. They don't deserve half the trouble they've been caught up in.
Neither do you, Mr. Brichesi. You're a good man as well.
Well, Father, just as long as you don't tell anyone else that I'd hate for it to harm my reputation.
He gives a laugh and then glances down at your mug and tops it off again and says, "Well, what are you doing, man? I can't be drinking here alone." And I think that's where we kind of pan out on there. And Red, what about you? Where do we kind of see you?
Oh gosh, I think there's a couple questions that I think maybe need to get answered. If I may ask first to help me understand.
Sure. Yeah.
What was in Chandler's will?
Oh, what do you want there to be in Chandler's will?
Well, I'm just curious. Like, was Emmett Red? Was he in the will? Did he get anything from that?
Yeah, and I guess I am throwing that out to you. What do you think that Chandler would leave you? I definitely think that if you want, he has left you this apartment at the very least. But he may have left you more. I mean, maybe has Red found himself in charge of like his actual like owning Chandler's actual business
Oh, God.
interests.
I think definitely the apartment. I think that's definitely a thing. I think definitely the apartment he was living in. I think definitely like this sounds sort of weird to say, but definitely Mr. Shaw.
I mean, yes, he probably can't leave you Mr. Shaw in the will, but I definitely think you have inherited Mr. Shaw.
Shaw, like his services or maybe even a debt contract or something like.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I mean, I guess you played Chandler for whatever it's worth. What do you think he would leave Emmett?
I mean, I do actually think that he was not originally planning on killing Emmett. That only arose like that was specifically why he was going to sacrifice Alex.
Yeah.
To not sacrifice
Emmett.
his favorite among his boys that he has gone through over the years. Yeah, no, I think he definitely would have been generous to you in his will if and I guess I'm kind of asking like how much do you want Emmett to have inherited?
I'm terrible because I want to be like whatever Chandler would give him. Because like I don't think I have anything specific in mind. Although I think it would be interesting if like Christine Wentworth like expected now that her brother is dead she'd get everything and oops no.
Yeah, I mean maybe that's it. Maybe he has split the controlling share of his business between the two of you.
That's awkward. And it's great because Emmett has no idea. You know, he's like fucking 20. He has no idea how any business, anything works. But hey, he's still got a place to stay, and that's great. And then I think my secondary question is like, what so like obviously Chandler was a rather present role as his benefactor.
Mm-hmm.
How present is Asmodeus with him?
I think that in the first few weeks after this conflict, you do not see as much of Asmodeus. But Asmodeus is not always present, but when he needs something of you, he seems always able to find you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it is a more distant like benefactor relationship. You can reach out to him, you can find him, but he is not like visiting you for because he wants to like Chandler does.
Yeah, it's again there's that this relationship at least currently maybe is very much all business, whereas you had that sort of terrifying mad love before that kept them very close. Perhaps perhaps it will eventually become some kind of fondness or something, but right now I think it's very much all business, and Emmett doesn't know how to navigate that, and so I think it's very interesting. I think he obviously spends some time recuperating with Alex, both of them from their ordeal. And I think they're definitely together. And it's very cute. But like I think there's a lot of moments of we see of like Emmett like in a board meeting in like a stuffy suit or something, having deals as like Christine is arguing for something, and he doesn't get it. Like he doesn't know this. He's not aggressive in that way, and he keeps like looking at Mr. Shaw, who's like very much standing in a right hand man kind of style for like advice or moments. And then I think we get to a scene where he's sitting at Dante's club, and I think maybe it's like Emmett, Dante, and Cleo, and they're all having a drink. They've all got a drink in front of them, and then next to that drink is an even smaller glass with some demoniac that hasn't been touched yet for each of them. And there's bags under his eyes. I think Alex is at some kind of actual event or something, and it's running late, but on his way. And Emmett sort of looks at them both, no longer as naive as he was in that first bit, a little more haunted. So we're all his, in a way.
In a way, kid, yeah. But just remember that no matter how it looks, there's always a choice to be found. And I think he'll kind of, knock back his drink. Good choices, on the other hand, those are far harder to come by.
I think Cleo also kind of just like is swirling the demoniac and the little glass or whatever, and says, besides, I'm sure he has some weaknesses. After all, he was put in a box once, or imprisoned once, and if it ever gets too bad, I'm sure we can figure out a way to play some tricks on him.
Yeah, and I think Emmett kind of nods, takes a sip of his regular drink, and looks at the demoniac and says, how about we all take it 1, 2, 3? Have a moment of togetherness and honesty. He lifts up his glass of demoniac.
Yeah, Cleo makes a face. Like, why can't anything associated with demons ever taste good?
I don't know. I kind of like it.
It's an acquired taste. Whether it's worth the time and it takes to acquire it, who's to say?
And I'm wondering, as just about you were about to share those secrets, is that where we fade to black on like the season closer? And I think maybe there is as the kind of cold cliffhanger for the second season. We go back to that basement of the museum where that painting is stored away. And a hand shoots out of the painting and feels along the ground. And that is where we close things for the series. And I want to thank everyone for playing, for going through with all this. I had great fun GMing this run. We're gonna be doing, not with this group, but with a different group. We're gonna be doing a Master of Jinn next month. And so I'm looking forward to that as well. Thanks everyone for joining with us, and I'll be seeing you all some other day, morning, night, whenever.